Dr. Tamer Aboualy, IBM Global OT Security Lead, to present on cybersecurity challenges in IT and ICS environment and the KMPC OT IT SOC use case. Please.
So good afternoon, everybody. Hope everybody is awake and had a good lunch. My name is Dr. Tamer Aboualy. I head the IBM Global OT Security capability. Just a little bit of sound. It's okay now? Okay, good. All right. Just a little bit of background about myself. My research is in applied cryptography and securing of embedded systems. As well, I hold a number of patents. One of the recent patents I did is around OT security, vulnerability discovery, and management. So my background is more from the, let's say more from the technical side. I'm not a very good manager, even though they ask me to be, but we do our best. So what are we going to talk about in the next 20 minutes today? So first, just a little bit about IT and OT. What we know is that IT and OT, they're different worlds, different skills, and even different methods. But what we see is that these two worlds are converging. And as you'll see in the slides that come later on, I'll be talking a little bit about the KMPC IT-OT SOC, where we began to converge this. Actually, KMPC would be the first IT-OT SOC in Kuwait. So we'll be talking about this use case at the very end, just before we go through a couple of other things. So first, I'll be talking a little bit about some examples, why the attacks are possible, and then the use case of the KNPC IT-OT SOC. So the speaker before me talked about Shodan and discovering of OT assets globally. I'll also go through a little bit of that. This here is an example of a search that we did for Kuwait and wanting to understand what we see in Kuwait in terms of OT security assets. But there's a guy coming from Shodan tomorrow. So we mixed it up a bit. So in the next couple of slides, I'm not going to be using Shodan. I'm going to be using the Chinese equivalent or competitor called FOFA. There are many search engines. I like the Chinese one just because it's in Chinese, and you can actually select the equipment model vendor as well too. So using FOFA, what we decided to look for first is for Modbus. See what we can find in Modbus in Kuwait. And as you can see, we found a number of targets in Kuwait. And there you see FOFA, you see the number of, you see the Kuwaiti flag, and also a number of the targets that we found. Just to let you know, there's a saying, in God we trust, and everything else we Google. So how do you break in or you compromise that device? Well, you just go to Google and you look for the manual. And in the manual, it says the default admin and password. You put that in and you'll be able to look at the device and compromise it. Another example is an ABB device that we found in Kuwait as well too. However, what's interesting in this device here, although again you can Google and find the default credentials, what's interesting too, if you use MITRE or some other areas, you'll also notice that this specific model has a number of vulnerabilities, such as buffer overflow and so on. So understanding this specific model, I don't necessarily just need the default credentials, which shouldn't work. There's other ways to compromise and gain access to this device from the internet. And that's what the device would look like once we have access. I'm not going to say if this is a Kuwaiti device or a non-Kuwaiti device. Can anybody tell me what that one says? What does it say? Regency. What hotel are we in today? The Regency. So we found the Regency HVAC and AC system as well too. We didn't attempt to shut off the, the AC or anything like that. However, again, the manual is available to us. As well as we looked at this specific device too, it had multiple vulnerabilities that we could use to compromise. So recommendation to the Regency people, speak to your HVAC and AC provider. That's what the screen would look like once you do gain access. Some other sites that we looked at during our looking at the IP space in Kuwait. One interesting one was a Honeywell where it said, please install plugins first. So what happens if you hit install? Well, if it's connected to a process, that process is going down because this thing is going to reboot, most probably. The other one that we found was more of an IoT device. This is a, maybe, oh, yeah, they put the ministry. So this is a device connected to one of the ministries here, and from there we're able to see X-rays, records, things like that. So a little bit of a sensitive one. I didn't know that they were going to show the MOH tag. I blanked that out. So moving right along. So what are the attack vectors reaching OT networks? Well, one of the most popular ones we've used in our testing is the OT engineer. The most popular one I used before is sending him an email from, or her from his mother. But mother doesn't ever send an email. And we're able to compromise that workstation. And most of the times, because the alignment with IT policies is not aligned in the OT environment, we're able to cause and introduce malware into that environment. But other attack vectors that we see is removable media, remote technician access. When you have remote technicians, who here turns off their access afterwards? Or employs a method of giving them only the right type of access that they need, or logging their type of access. I've done countless investigations, many, where at the end, we're looking to who gained access into the environment. Why are the attacks possible? Well, as you already seen, default configurations. I don't know why, but every single time when we do an assessment, we find passwords like password 123, or the name of the company, or no passwords at all, or passwords that you can guess. So updating and making sure you don't have default configurations is very important. When a technician goes out and replaces a device, if it uses Bluetooth and he's sitting in his truck and he, because it's hot outside, doesn't want to go outside and configure it, rather using Bluetooth, those things should be also disabled afterwards. Policies and procedures, legacy systems, encryption, updates, segmentation. There are many, many challenges. So what's the difference between an IT and an OT incident? So in an IT incident, that's typically, let's say, a denial of service attack, where many bots on the internet or robots are used in order to send a lot of, maybe a volumetric attack to a site or to a company. Or let's say loss of sensitive data, such as maybe the CEO had board deliberations where they're going to purchase a company or build a new factory, mine, or site. Or more importantly, the one that we see most commonly, actually I just seen this a few days ago, where the entire environment has been encrypted. Actually, this region here, the Gulf region, is the most famous for what we call destructive, catastrophic malware, where the malware deletes everything. if not encrypting, pretty much deleting. So that's quite often what we see in IT incidents. In OT incidents, it's a little bit different. For example, power outages, an authorized person having access to an ID or sending incorrect commands to trip circuits, disrupt power to a process, a production outage, again, sending incorrect commands, unauthorized commands to a PLC, turn faster, turn slower, stop a process completely, or the loss of life. If I wanted to cause significant problems to an organization, the one I would want is loss of life, because that's also loss of significant reputation. So again, depending on what you want to do, it's up to your imagination, really. The type of malware you use, the type of attack that you want to use, depending on the process. If it's one that uses chemicals, explosives, fire, heat, those are the type of things that we look at, are afraid at. In creating a IT/OT security strategy, again, we see the worlds coming together. So there needs to be now a common approach. The OT side is very important, and we need to know how we manage security policies in it. So the first one is really, what you do is you assess the environment. You assess the environment in terms of, what are the OT security policies that you're aligned to, such as 62443, IT security policies, doing a vulnerability assessment, either passive or active. Yes, there are some active assessments done in OT environments. It has to be very controlled and very understood, more controlled, but it is done. And then defining your security framework, aligning to standards. What are the standards you're going to use? What industry are you in? The rail industry is different from the petrochemical. There are different standards that we need to use. So you need to align those standards. In creating your risk management framework, identifying the security capabilities and where you're going to go with this. What do you need in that environment in terms of the type of capabilities, such as SOC, identity and access management? Are you going to architect or rezone the environment? Building your roadmap, and then most importantly, doing this again and continuously improving your environment. So I'm going to talk now a little bit about the KNPC IT/OT SOC use case. So first, why an OT SOC? Well, in a production environment, you understand how many products you're producing, what the production level is. If you need to add more equipment, more people. In your OT environment, you also need telemetry data and understanding. Do you have malware? Is there attackers? What's happening in my environment? If you don't understand what's happening in your environment, then you are running blind. So this is very important to understand what is the OT environment doing. Are there risks? Are there issues? We achieve this by doing many things, such as detecting, understanding scenarios, use cases, and instrumentation, which I'll talk about, creating response runbooks, automation, and also the continuous improvement of the overall SOC as well, too. So the KNPC IT/OT SOC is now live and operational. This is a very significant achievement for KNPC and the overall KNPC team, because this is the first IT/OT SOC in the region. So a very significant accomplishment. Also, good luck to I do this job globally. There are not too many of these. There's a lot of people who say they have an OT SOC capability, but they're really not looking at level 1 or level 2. And then doing the combined IT and OT SOC functionality and actually getting it to work. So this is a significant accomplishment for the KNPC team and also for the entire region. One other thing that I'll say is in IBM security, I know sometimes the Gulf region gets labeled with, let's say, not mature as other regions. However, what we see coming out of this region is very mature in terms of OT and OT security capabilities, securing environments, really having heritage and culture of securing environments. So actually, the region should really become more of an example for the overall world. It's actually why I'm based in the region, is to take what we've learned here and make sure that we bring that to Asia Pacific, Europe, North America, and other regions. So, what were some of the phases that we went through? Well, this isn't an exhaustive list, but just a few things so you understand. First, an assessment. You need to understand the current maturity level that you're at. If you're at nothing, then you need to state that. You also need to understand your environment. Where are your assets? What are your assets? If you ask my wife, where's her jewelry in the house, hopefully she'll be able to tell you. In your organization, you also need to know where your most valuable assets are and how long they can be down for, or what you're using them for, or who is the process owner. So creating an assessment. Also creating the strategy, the mission, the operating model, the service catalog. What services are you going to provide? Are they going to be 24/7, 9x5? What exactly are you going to do? Are other entities going to use your service? How are they going to use your service? The governance framework. When are you going to meet? How are you going to meet? What is going to be the collateral that comes out of that? It's very important when, sometimes when you use the word governance, it's like a really big word. So it's good to put definitions around what governance is and what you want out of it. Architecture and design. Again, very important. What is the SOC, OT, IT architecture and design going to look like? How is it going to function? Is it going to be redundant or not? Where are you going to extract span ports to, and so on. The organizational design, extremely important. Are you going to have level 1, level 2, level 3, sourcing models, so on. Processes, use cases, runbooks, very important. Actually, probably one of the most important here is the processes and procedures and also use cases. So how does this approach all help? Well, it all helps in terms of bringing what we have in IT, in OT, into events of interest or security events of interest, and allows us then to make them actionable. For the OT side, the method that we used is to gain visibility into the OT environment is an industrial IDS. There are many on the market, but what it allows us to do is to take a look at PLCs and other OT equipment and to attain telemetry data. We do this by what we call mirroring of the port. So meaning in a passive mode, not in a mode where we could cause maybe unintended problems to the production. Use cases. This is an example of some of the OT security use cases. So they're different from the IT SOC use cases. So for example, if you ask somebody from the IT world, what's a goose message? They'll have no clue. How do you look for these type of messaging? What do you do when you see malformed ones? IEC 104 messages, anomalies, and so on. So we create a number of use cases using more of a threat and attack approach to understand. And we create a set of use cases specifically for the environment. I know I only have, I think, a few minutes left. So incident response is also very critical to the environment. In KNPC, the cases that we created also had runbooks in order to respond to specific events. But just going through here, preparation, identification, containment, eradication, recovery, lessons learned. The last one is one that many people forget, is the lessons learned. It's the enrichment of what we do. It allows us to build better use cases, better responses, know how to respond quicker and faster to the next issue. This is a day in the life of the KMPC OT IT SOC. So the team consists of a mix of level 1, level 2, different types of skills within the IT OT SOC. Depending on the event that comes in or the offense, a ticket is created. And what we've done is, depending on the ticket attribute and type, the resolver group can either be the IT team or the OT team. The thing to understand here is that there are many instances where you will need the engineers and the OT team to investigate and to look at incidents and to resolve them. Sometimes with the help of the IT security team as well too. But the idea here is it's converged and we work together. And it's very important to promote that. Very, very quickly, some of the other key components. Know your environment. Create your runbooks, your skills. Make sure you have your visibility, your communications plan and framework. But besides all of the technical things that are here, I think the most important thing that everyone who is going to embark on this type of project is to make sure you have the cooperation of your OT security teams or your OT teams, and you reach out to your OT teams and involve them. I can tell you the KMPC team, this was the top consideration in making sure that they reach out and have the buy-in of the OT teams in order to make a project like this successful. And because of time, that will be it. Any questions? Yes?
Thank you for the talk. How is IBM as a purely IT company is approaching the OT monitoring, detection, and all this stuff? Is your solutions only on the application level, or you are going down all the way to the hardware level? And
okay, so the question is, how is IBM as a solution provider? Are we at the application level? How do we function at the OT or the IoT level? The answer to this is we also look at the OT environment. We look at the IoT environment too. We utilize other technologies as well, such as industrial IDSs, in order to get us visibility into the OT environment. I also work very closely with other automation vendors. So for example, ABB. We're working with ABB, where ABB will, is planning integration into IBM's technology directly. We work with all of the providers. We will continually to have to do this so that we find ways to, improve the visibility of our environments. The other thing that we've done is we've launched a global OT security capability. So you're aware that IBM security SOCs are global. They're in about 12 countries all over the world, where we monitor and manage client infrastructures. This now will be augmented with OT SOC capability. We will begin to certify IDSs, just as we certify any other IDS, and we will bring more and more functionality into the OT SOC capability. Any other questions? Person raising their hand at the back. Did you have a question?
Thank you for the presentation. I have two questions.
Yes?
The first question is, you mentioned a lot of things about power system, like
Yes.
IEDs and ghost messages,
Yes.
which gives an impression that you implemented integration of power system coverage. So up to what level, up to what voltage level? This is the first question. Second question is regarding the engagement. So this kind of business, up to how many years of engagement between the vendor and the end user?
Sorry, what did you say? Up to how many what of the engagement?
Up to how many years of engagement?
Years, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first question was the integration, how far did it go? Because we did mention serial messaging and Goose. And the second one is how many years does this type of engagement go to? Okay, it's not letting me go back. Yeah, they're not going to let me go back. So we look, in terms of the OT environment, we looked at level 1 and level 2. It is a possibility to look at actuators at level 0, except that would involve a different level of complexity. However, just by aggregating and bringing the events from level 1 and level 2, we're able to get a very good understanding and telemetry of the environment. And what we're finding is that the events make sense. It also allows us to explore. The other thing which I didn't mention is one key part of the day in the life is when we receive an event. So sometimes you'll receive a PLC that you've never seen. Why haven't you seen this? So one of the other jobs of the OT IT SOC is to check inventory management. Is this device for real? Is it supposed to be online or isn't it? So change management and checking of change management is sort of more or less an interesting aspect of the converged IT OT SOC, where you really need to be cognizant and understanding of the OT assets that are coming online or maybe even coming offline. The second question was the engagement. It's a consulting engagement. Typical timelines, depending on environment, is you're looking at about 6 months range in order to get an initial level of functionality. After that, there'll be other functionalities. The intention behind the KNPC SOC now is to expand and to grow and to achieve more telemetry into other areas. The IBM part of this is we work hand in hand and very closely with the KNPC team in order to achieve that mission in the SOC monitoring room and also as part of the ongoing consulting. Any other questions? The blue light, I can't see much. Okay. Is anybody worried about the AC in the Regency Hotel? That was a good one, huh? That was very good. Okay. Thank you very much for your time, everybody. Thank you.